in our keynote, we are really thrilled, to have Bill McDermott, the CEO of SAP here. It was quite a coup to get him. He's had a busy day. You're going to hear a lot about him. You're going to hear about his best-selling book, which was released a couple weeks ago. And he's going to be, it's going to be a question and answer period with Christopher Wink. Christopher is the co-founder and editor of Technical Philly. So I'd like to, I guess, introduce Blank Rome and their partner Lou Rappaport, who was the sponsor of this session. So Lou Rappaport from Blank Rome.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lou Rappaport, partner at Blank Rome, and I head our firm's venture group. Our venture group includes about 35 attorneys in Philadelphia and New York and our other offices. We advise early stage and emerging growth businesses in a wide range of industries, including information technology and healthcare innovation. Our clients also include middle market private equity firms and venture capital firms. As a firm, Blank Rome has approximately 500 attorneys serving clients in 11 offices. We help clients in all aspects of their business, including corporate and financings, intellectual property, employment, and virtually every other area of commercial law. Despite our size, and what sets us apart is our dedication to becoming true business partners with our clients. We often serve as outside in-house counsel to clients, advising them on a range of legal issues. We have strong relationships with entrepreneurs, financing sources, and investment banks, so we have the ability to make introductions and facilitate business relationships to help our clients grow. Blank Rome has long been a part of the venture community. We don't just represent emerging growth businesses, we invest in the sector as well. We're pleased to sponsor the Impact Capital Conference this year and have long been active in the venture capital community on a number of fronts. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our fireside chat with our keynote speaker, Bill McDermott. Bill is Chief Executive Officer and Executive Board Member of SAP, the world's business software market leader, with more than 250,000 customers in 188 countries. He leads the company's 66,500 employees to execute on SAP's vision and strategy to make the world run better and improve people's lives. Under Bill's leadership, in 2014, SAP unveiled a strategy to help businesses of all sizes simplify everything. The company has built the industry's most comprehensive portfolio of solutions in the SAP cloud. Bill and former co-CEO Jim Hagemann-Snabe are credited with leading the reinvention of SAP in the era of mobility, cloud computing, advanced analytics, next-generation business applications, and in-memory technology. Since 2010, this strategy has resulted in expansive increases in customers' total revenue, market value, and profitable growth. Bill has more than 3 decades of experience in business technology. He joined SAP in 2002 and previously served in executive roles with Siebel Systems and Gartner. He launched his business career at Xerox Corporation, where he rose to become the company's youngest corporate officer and division president. Bill got his start as a young entrepreneur running a small delicatessen business on Long Island at the tender age of 17. He's a passionate believer in engaging up-and-coming leaders and has been recognized by organizations ranging from City Year of Greater Philadelphia and the Children's Aid Fund Society of New York. He's a frequent speaker on leadership topics, contributes original content to major international publications, and serves on the boards of directors of Under Armour and Ansys Inc. Bill received his bachelor's degree from Dowling College and his MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Bill, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I also have the pleasure of introducing Christopher Wink, who will serve as our moderator of today's discussion. Chris is the co-founder of Technically, a network of local technology news sites and events featuring its flagship Technical Philly and its sister publications in Brooklyn, Washington, D.C., Delaware, and Baltimore. In this capacity, he's a lead organizer of Philly Tech Week and Baltimore Innovation Week, among other events that endeavor to bring smart people together. Previously, Chris worked for the homeless advocacy nonprofit and was a freelance reporter. Chris, thank you for agreeing to moderate this session. And without further ado, I'd like to ask Chris and Bill to join me for the fireside chat.
Hi there.
Hey, sir. We're meeting each other again.
Good to be with you, man.
Bill requested excitement. He requested live theater.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask him to do a dance, something embarrassing at the end.
Love to.
We'll do something crazy.
We're somewhere between them and a martini, man.
That's
We gotta
right.
Pick it
That's
up
right. Martinis. Is that what? Who is a martini drinker here? I don't know about martini. Probably martini. There's a round of applause. There's a martini drinker in.
Okay.
All right. There's a round of applause for martinis. That's happening right now. You know it's a good event when that happens. So we're here. I've wanted to interview a national bookseller for years. I keep interviewing poets, and I went the wrong direction. I should have gone with a business guy. So we're going to talk a little bit about the book that I think folks will be getting. We'll talk a little bit about technology, SAP, what's changing, what's happening, impact of entrepreneurship. We want to go through all of this. But I have to start with clearly the most important subject of all. Last night, I was watching YouTube clips of you on Mad Money with Jim Cramer of Philadelphia. And that's got to be the fun experience of being CEO of a multinational. Do we have any Jim Cramer Mad Money stories? Anything about what's that like?
Well, I love Jim because he loves Philadelphia.
Yeah.
How about Philadelphia?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's talk Philadelphia. Go Eagles, baby. Go Eagles. Let's get it done here.
I'm not going to round of applause. That's so populist. Well done. Well done. I like that.
He does?
Yeah, right. So any memories? It's been a handful of times. I was just amused. I'm amused because there's buzzers around. There are things happening.
Yeah, what I love about Jim is when I meet him, it's usually around 4 or 4:30, I guess, in the afternoon. The show goes on, I guess, 6:30 or so. But the level of detail and preparation he puts into his show is really amazing. And that's why he's so good at it. And probably no matter what our professions are, if you put that level of preparation and detail into your job, you'll also be a fascinating success. And Jim is an awesome guy and a great friend.
Yep, that's cool. So let's get into the book a little bit. CEO of SAP, 80 billion market cap, but as you prominently and endlessly share in this book, come from different roots. Hicksville, Long Island. You like telling a lot of these stories. Give us the setup. I like, so we've heard the rags to riches story, right? We've heard that. Do you find in your working with other executives, do you find a difference between those who share that story, those who don't? Is that a narrative that plays out in boardrooms?
I think the interesting thing is not so much the rags to riches. The idea is wherever you come from, you got to want it more, man. You know, I remember my first interview, and I tell the story in the book, going from the delicatessen into Xerox. I'm on the Long Island Railroad. Actually, just before I got on the Long Island Railroad that day, I grew up in a house in Amityville, Long Island, on a concrete slab. And that day, we got hit by a northeast storm, and there was 4.5 feet of water in my house. That's a lot of water, and you're downstairs. You know. So my brother basically gets me on the 4th step coming from upstairs, puts me on his shoulder. I'm in my $99 suit, man. I can't get it wet. He carries me out to the street. My dad drives me to the Long Island Railroad tracks. And I tell my father, I guarantee you I'm going to come home tonight with my employee badge from Xerox Corporation. My dad said, hey, Bill, just do your best. You're a good guy. Don't worry about it. I'm like, I guarantee it. So I get on the railroad, and I'm reading the annual report from Xerox, and there was this CEO named David Kearns talking about reinventing this company on total quality management. And I got so obsessed with this guy's passion that by the time I got into Manhattan, I wasn't interviewing for the sales job. I was trying to be the next David Kearns.
At 21, right?
At 21. But I was coming off the deli experience we can get into in a little bit. But I get there, and that was part of the problem. I'm coming out of Long Island, blue-collar house, blue-collar town, and I got these kids from Yale and Notre Dame and all this with the Brooks Brothers suits from Greenwich and Princeton. I'm like, man, I'm in trouble. But I asked them, you know, what are you guys here for? You know, I had to improvise. And they're like, well, you know, we'll play in the field. We got Goldman Sachs, we got Merrill Lynch, we got IBM. I knew exactly why I was there. And when I went into those interviews, I was there to get my dream job. After 8 interviews, I get to 9 West 57th on the 38th floor overlooking Central Park. I'm on a bench, next to another candidate, sitting there like two tin men, kind of like you and me.
Right. I'm more of a scarecrow, but we'll take it.
And then I go over to the assistant and I say, I know that I've been waiting here an extra half an hour and I'm not upset. I'm good with that. I just want you to tell Mr. Fullwood I'll be here as long as he needs me to be here. She carries him in a note. Lo and behold, seconds later, I'm in his office interviewing for the job. We have this great meeting. And at the end of the meeting, he said, Bill, this was a fantastic discussion. In the next couple of weeks, the HR department will be in touch with you. And I said, Mr. Fullwood, I don't think you completely understand the situation, sir. He kind of tilts his head as if to say, what is this boy talking about? And I said, you know, I haven't broken a promise to my dad in 21 years, and I can't start today. I guaranteed my father I was coming home with my employee badge in my pocket. I said nothing else. His head tilted even more. And he said, Bill McDermott, as long as you have not committed any crimes, you're hired. And I said, well, Mr. Fullwood, I haven't committed any crimes. Does that mean I'm hired? So I get up, I shake his hand, I give him this huge bear hug, and then I go down the elevator to 57th Street, shoot over to 6th Avenue, to Bun and Burger, and I put these quarters in the payphone. Does anybody remember when you used to have to put quarters in the payphone? And I called up my mom and dad, and I said, hey, Mom and Dad, I just want to let you know, we got the job. All I could say is, break out the core bell. I'm coming home to celebrate, baby. And that's kind of the way it rolls.
Yeah. So the book is full of a lot of those great anecdotes from your own experience. And I'm reading it, and I kept wondering, so have you had someone sit in your office and say, I'm not leaving till I get the job today, and you're like, ugh.
You know, that's a great question, actually, and my compliments, because you must be from Philadelphia, man, because no one else has asked me that question, you know? Give him a hand, come on, the guy's awesome, it's a great question. The fact is, nobody has ever done it.
Okay, all right.
And yet, at the same time, I pray that they will someday.
Yeah.
And what I always look for is people that really want it. You know, that passion, that grit, that drive, that determination. It really matters.
Yeah. But so, I love pieces of advice like that, because presumably the logic is sitting in the room forever is not the answer. It's the idea of the emotion or the passion behind it that drove it. So theoretically, I could come and just sit in your office.
Right.
And you're still not going to give me the job, maybe, because like maybe I'm just sitting in the office, right? Like there's a deeper meaning that you're conveying there.
You know, you're just looking for that depth. You're just trying to feel that emotion in the room and that excitement and that energy in a person. Yeah. And when you feel it and when you see it, you want it. Yeah. And you always want to help people that are the underdog. Like I always felt, and I still do, like I go into every situation as the underdog, because I think it's part of how you grow up and where you come from. And if we can all think like the underdog in every situation and never take anything for granted, you could probably make a success of yourself.
Beautiful. I don't want to go through the entire book, as we want people to read the gosh darn things, but another story that I actually really liked, because it resonated with me personally, you wrote a little bit about writing priorities for your life.
Yeah.
What you wanted to, what you wanted to have happen, and then kind of worked backwards and said, how do I get there? And you revised them a couple times. So the jump that I made, though, is you wrote about how you changed family, that yes. moved higher, right?
Yeah.
As you got a little older, you got touch with family. Do you still grapple with work-life balance now when you're CEO of a multinational? What are those lessons at your extreme? How have those priorities changed, and how might others want to write a list like that? And do they wax and wane? I mean, does family have to change depending on what you're trying to do at a certain period of your life?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is I always spent a lot of time on goal setting as a leader, and always setting these really bold goals. So who gets out of bed to win the silver? Anybody? And the idea is, what is the wildest, biggest goal that you can dream of, and then have to change a model to actually achieve it, like really rethink everything. And a lot of people do the big goal thing, but they never stop to think about each of the individuals on the team and what their goals are. And the idea of understanding their human goals in association with the overarching goal is really important, and you got to celebrate those goals. Big thing as I think about, answering your question, what's most important to you, by the way, in answering the question?
I'm recently engaged.
Okay.
I'm pretty happy about that. I
Yeah.
have some work priorities as well. I got a cat I like that I want to keep happy, and there's a variety.
Right. So if I could truly understand those dynamics in your life and associate that with the bigger picture, if you can fuse those things together, you can really make something happen.
Yeah.
We got this theme called discretionary effort. If everybody just gave 10% discretionary effort for the other colleague, and we didn't leave any woman or man behind, no matter what, and everybody had to succeed, that could really fundamentally change the world. And I don't think people spend enough time on that. But I'll give you my own personal story. I don't think you want to hear me talk about all the success stuff, because I've had my share of ups and downs just like everybody else. I'll give you my big thunderbolt. So after 17 years of going from my CEO job at Xerox, the dream job, the perfect life.
At 21, that was what you had said you were
That
going
was
to do?
the dream life, go for the stars. I'm now in my mid-30s, I'm a corporate officer, which means basically in those days, the top 5 earnings years for the rest of your life, in perpetuity for you and your spouse. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Not too many companies do that stuff anymore. But I'm like, I'm not learning, man. I don't want to sit in a windowless conference room and talk about every 90 days how we're going to cut off the water, don't feed the people the donuts, kill the training budget, because God forbid they should know what they're doing. Let's not let them travel and see customers because we might get some revenue. I mean, come on, man. This is not my destiny. I just know it. So I could have hung out and went for the corner office, but I'm like, by the time I get it, this place will be finished anyway. So I make the change. The next day.
And this is 90s, 2000?
This is late 90s.
Okay.
Late 90s. The next day, I go to a doctor visit with my wife. She gets kind of a false positive on a breast scanning exercise, and I'm like, oh, I don't feel good about this. But hell, I already resigned, so we got to go for it. So we go to Connecticut, and I'm working for Gartner at the time, living in a hotel for a few months. By the time my family gets there, it's already now the house on the hill, it's all set for them, but the furniture's not there, so we got to go to a hotel room. I'm in Miami, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I finally make it home after the most unbelievable rain and northeast storm that continued into the next day. I get into the hotel room, I lay down next to my wife in a soaking wet suit, didn't even change. I was like, you hug me, I'll hug you, we're gonna find a way through tonight,
Yeah.
Then it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got the wife and the 2 little kids, and I gotta take these puppies and get them some food, So my wife's like, go to the diner. I go to this diner, but before I do so, I go down a hill outside this hotel, I slip, I fall. I rip the suit, the shirt, cut myself, mud everywhere. I look like a disaster. I get in this rent-a-car, and it's still kind of frosty, even though it's raining. It felt snow. I get into the diner. I look so bad that there was a husband and a wife with their little kids, and the wife is looking at me, let me get the kids out of the way. And I'm like, I'm not that bad a guy. I'm cool. But I look like Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. So I get back to the hotel room. We have the soggy breakfast, and everybody busts out into tears. And you talk about feeling like a loser. That had to be one of the most amazing lows I've ever known. Within a few days, then we had to follow up on that test. My wife is diagnosed with breast cancer. I got these 2 little kids. I'm in this lonely, big-ass house on the hill, and who cares about the house? And everything came into full form for me. So I go to Sloan Kettering. I was a big spender. I took out my Visa card, and I said, I want a private room so I can stay with my wife. And my mom and dad come and take care of the kids. And I'm walking around, pacing around Sloan Kettering, the private floor. And I run into this priest, very nice man. And he said, hey, what are you in here for? I explained what I'm in here for with my wife. And I said, Father, what are you in here for? And he said, well, I'm associated with the New York Fire Department, and one of my colleagues has cancer, and it's a bad battle, and I'm praying for him, and so on. Didn't think anything of it. About 3.5 hours later, I'm in post-op and intensive care, sitting next to my wife, and the nurse says, hey, Bill, there's a priest here that wants to see you. I'm like, what? A priest? Are you guys not telling me everything? What's going on here? No, he says he's your friend. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay, no problem. How many friends do I have that are priests? I'll take it, you know? So he comes, and he says this impassioned prayer, puts the cross on my wife. She wakes up looking at him. And he takes me out in the hallway, and he said, Bill, I just want to let you know, your wife's going to be fine. I'm like, how do you know, Father? And he goes, I got friends in high places, man. I'm like, wow, cool. I'm not going to ask you a second question because that answer was so good. I'm good with that. He comes back 4 days later. It's a Sunday night, probably around 10 p.m., which is kind of late in the hospital. And he spends easily an hour with us. At the end, I said, Father, if there's anything I can ever do for you, please don't ever hesitate. I really like to do my part. And he goes, Bill, you can do something for me tonight. I said, what's that? He goes, I see a beautiful young woman like this, struggling with this terrible disease. It just wrecks me. And it makes me want to go to the corner bar and start drinking, and I have a problem with that. So would you say a prayer for me? I said, you got it. The next thing I know, we had left Gartner, and I tell the story in the book. I'm at Siebel Systems in Northern California. My friends call me from the East Coast at 5:30 in the morning when the 9/11 crisis hit New York City. And the first casualty that was reported at 9/11 was Father Michael Judge. And it was Father Michael Judge that walked with me in that unbelievable, solemn moment in Sloan Kettering. So what I really learned from all this is to reprioritize those goals and just make sure that you never leave behind the most important things. Because when it's all said and done, and when the movie stops playing, that's the stuff that lasts.
So that's such a poignant story, and a lot of us probably have those. I feel like the challenge often is the in-between days, right? When it's not the absolute lowest or the absolute highest, when it's just like, it's just Tuesday and, hey, am I gonna see you? Are there lessons you've learned, or their processes? How do you defend that time with family for anyone who has, these balances?
The most important thing is it's real simple. It's like, you gotta be a warrior in life. You gotta want it more. And I think on the professional front, you gotta go in there, whether you're going into an office or your home office or whatever you're doing, you gotta want it more. So who you wanna be, how you're gonna help other people hit their goals, what your aspirations are and your dreams are, they have to be absolutely integrated with your colleagues. And you'll be a great professional if you have the empathy for other people. It's like the empathy for your customer, the empathy for your colleague. Like, I was just telling a story tonight about people that just consume the conversation and it's all about them. It's so boring. Like, I want to know about you. I want to talk about your bike ride here and what you're doing because I find you interesting. I don't want to talk about me, but I will if you ask me to. So I think this empathy is a big part of the equation. I really do.
Have you had to say no in work? Like, no, I can't do that meeting. No, I can't.
I'll tell you right now. If you have a choice between your child's birthday, your husband or your wife's anniversary, there's a death somewhere in the family or the extended family, and showing up for the damn meeting, cancel the damn meeting. Be at the events. And the other thing is, the best executives, the people that really matter in the world, they got that generosity gene. So they want you to be generous. They want to be generous, and everybody can be a little bit more generous. In 2010, one of the reasons I even wrote The Winner's Dream is I lost my mom at 67, way too young, from pancreatic cancer right here at Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia. You want to talk about low? I mean, there's certain things that get you down that, can I ever get back up again? But the thing is, that day, I had like the biggest meeting of my career as a co-CEO in Germany. There was like no way I'm going to be there. And everybody not only covered it, but they rallied because of it. And I think that's the kind of culture you have to create. I'll remember things in my life that, like, you know, I was knocking on cold doors for a living as a young guy, very driven. And the second one of my colleagues had a baby girl, I canceled everything and shot over to Lenox Hill Hospital with flowers for his wife, Rita, and I was the first guy that showed up at the hospital to congratulate them. I'll never forget David Kearns, the CEO of Xerox, you know, the guy that I wanted to be when I was 21, when he passed. And I was traveling somewhere on an international level, and I'm like, cancel everything, because I'm going to be at that funeral home in Rochester, New York, to pay my respects to one of my heroes. I mean, these are the things that matter. It's not like all the other stuff doesn't. It does, but it doesn't matter as much. And you're never going to be as good at the little things if you don't get the big things right. And I think clear conscience matters a lot too, because a lot of people, they get these guilt complexes because they don't make the firm decision to make the big choices. They're kind of toggling all the time between the big ones and the little ones. Get the big ones right. The little ones will be okay.
Love that. So let's widen a bit, but still have kind of that
Sure.
personal setting. So we're in Philadelphia, we're at Impact from PACT, fantastic event, right?
Awesome.
You're a Wharton guy. Newtown Square is a huge North American headquarters for SAP. You have some Philly ties. In the past decade or so, we've seen a resurgence locally in Philadelphia of a technology and entrepreneurial community, something that's happening around the world, right? Like Berlin has a resurging scene. Have you watched, right, lots of communities bubbling? Is that inspiring for you that it's not just a Valley story anymore, that tech communities are happening around the world? There are ways that SAP, you have a lot of operations around the country. Do you play that role? Like, what's exciting to you about that? Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love innovation, you know, wherever it comes from. But if it can come from Philadelphia, I love it even more. You know, I came here in 2002 from Northern California. I made a commitment to my wife. I saw a good friend of mine, Michael Heller, earlier tonight. He said, you made the promise that you weren't leaving, and I kept that promise. I'm honored to be in the great city of Philadelphia, to be a resident of Villanova, Pennsylvania, to have raised my sons here, to be so happy here. This is a great, great, great community. To have my colleagues in Newtown Square, 2,500 strong and growing all the time. It's a blessing. It really is. I think we should do a lot of things in Philadelphia to spur on economic growth. I mean, I look at the water. I'm not a real estate developer, but I look at the water and I have this vision, like all these young startups popping up all over the place in lofts and exciting places and hotels and condominiums and amazing things happening here to draw jobs in and create
Co-working spaces.
just absolute movement, because this place has so much potential, in addition to already being a firmly recognized great city. But we're only getting started if we put our mind to it. But when I think about the young innovators and venture capital and young people coming out of university, our partnership with Drexel and Wharton and Temple and other places in the city, this is a hub of great talent. And every company needs great talent. That's like the main thing. My take is, I'll give you a couple of examples. We went into a little bit of a shopping spree at SAP.
It's true.
Because in 2010, we revamped the strategy of the company. You know, we were the #1 business software applications and analytics company in the world, which is great, but we were participating in a $110 billion US market. That's a good market. But we saw mobility. We saw the cloud. We saw, you know, data doubling in the world every 18 months with the Internet of Things and the emerging middle class. We saw the idea of not only managing commerce in your company, but managing commerce between companies and doing it all in the cloud. So we bought SuccessFactors. I'll tell you a little story. This was a $3.5 billion company, and what was interesting about this company is we put them in charge of our cloud business. So again, the empathy and the understanding that DNA matters. We wanted their DNA. We wanted the business network. So if you think about the Internet of Things and indirect materials and the idea of doing things in the network, where the network procures goods, pays for those goods, perhaps reinvents business models and does everything digitally with Ariba. You know, they were largely Northern California, but they also had a big presence in Pittsburgh. When I thought about the temporary labor force in the world, the fastest growing labor force in the world will be temporary workers. It's growing at 40% a year in the United States and Europe. We bought a company called Field Glass in Chicago. You know, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, the day I bought the company, there were, you know, all 400 of them in a place in downtown Chicago. Very young, very hep, very want it more kind of company. We just did Concur, a company in Seattle, for $8.3 billion. Why? Who's a business traveler here? Like everybody? How many of you like the travel experience? Like nobody? How many of you like filling out expense reports? Like not a single person. So you think about, okay, I got ground, Uber, and all the other stuff. I got air, all the airlines, which I know you love so much. You got food, you got entertainment. All of this stuff needs to be reconciled digitally on your device and updated in your expense report. But moreover, if you think about how that can be spread across a global economy, so here's where the startups come in. They're young, but they get 84% of their revenue in the United States. When you get a company with size and scale, you can automatically scale that out globally. So now we're looking at a situation where probably 30% of the expense budget in the world is in the United States. Why isn't the revenue only 30%? So there's 70% upside in the rest of the global economy. So I think the startups and the innovators do such a great job of starting it all off and getting it to a certain point. And then the big ones can help them really scale. Whether we buy them or we partner with them is not so much the issue. The issue is that we work together to create amazing economic value. Those are the kinds of things that we believe in.
One of those threads that we've seen editorially in our reporting is that move, the risk has moved, that research and development is becoming M&A, right? Like mergers and acquisitions. Is that something you guys talk about, that the entrepreneurial ecosystems that are flourishing around the world is now this experiment box? I mean, is that something that SAP talks and talks about?
Yeah, so you take, you know, so who thinks that data is totally out of control in the world? You know, think about sensors, think about cameras, think about everything going on with your refrigerator talking to your microwave and all this stuff in between. It's amazing. Here's the stat. In your enterprises, 99% of the data is dark, meaning it's there, but nobody has a way of doing anything with it. Either it's in a silo, it's on old technology, you don't have an integrated enterprise, it's very complicated stuff. So with SAP HANA, everything now is on a new architecture where the transactions that you do, people buy and sell stuff, that's a transaction. The analytics, the data you bring and look at, you Google it, just like you Google the internet. You Google the data in your enterprise. All the stuff that's coming off of social and the stuff that people write down and put in their emails and all that, that's called unstructured data. What if you could put all that into one database and everything was in main memory, where it wasn't stored on a disk, it wasn't in a vault, it wasn't in a department, anybody could get it based on the question they can ask the data. That's SAP HANA. So if you think about things like, how do you get venture capital and startups and entrepreneurs in Philly rocking on a new idea? We have 1,700 startups right now that have built their future on that platform. We partner with them. We invest in them. We give them unbelievable resources to scale. Some of them do fraud detection on top of HANA that could change the banking industry. Some of them actually do cancer research using the technology to basically make much smarter decisions for patients, not only in the pre-op, not only in the op, but even in the post-op phase, where a lot of people get killed putting themselves into harm's way with medicines and treatments that don't even match the DNA of their particular strain of cancer. HANA is saving so many lives that people don't even know about.
Yep.
So I think we should have 1,700 people in Philadelphia tonight that get the memo and say, what could I do in combination with SAP to absolutely fundamentally build my business on a platform like that and change the world?
And so HANA, your SAP signature software platform,
Right.
people like, I think we mentioned briefly Under Armour being an example. You're on the board of
Yes.
Under Armour. Use them as an example of a company that at its roots is not a technology story, but the way they are moving in wearables and just generally, that's an example that I think is telling of where we are today. Maybe tie that together on the board, anything that you're excited
So let's
by.
talk Under Armour.
Yeah.
I joined the board of Under Armour in 2005. Believe it or not, they were a pre-IPO company in 2005. They were doing $175 million US in revenue.
It's like 8 to 10 billion market cap now, something like that. Probably?
14 billion.
Oh, geez.
14 billion today. So what's interesting is back then I had one of their executives say to me, well, Bill, you know, why would a company like our size want to do business with a company like your size? Aren't you guys so big and so global and so complicated and all this other stuff? I mean, you're big. We're not. And I said, you know, it's interesting. In preparing for this meeting, I was completely unaware that it was your intent to stay small. And now, their entire global operation runs on one fundamental platform, and because HANA can put everything in main memory, if you're using wearable technology and you're trying to make the athlete better, all those algorithms are shooting into a cloud application where the individual user has personal information that's stored in main memory. So the comparison of what you did 1 minute ago or 1 day ago to what you're doing now can be analyzed and carefully studied, so you get better. Because their vision is to make athletes better. And you know, for the women out there, I love the women's campaign because the slogan is, we will what we want. And I think that's not only true of the amazing women and the amazing women athletes, but I think that's true of all of you. If you will it and you want it, you can get it.
You mentioned the cloud move, such a big story that's coming out of SAP. I think it's a fundamental change that's really interesting. Last earnings report, stock took a hit. The story you guys told that I thought was at least compelling was our user base is going from buying bundled software to I guess, subscription-based, longer-term revenue,
Right.
and that's changing things. Maybe talk a little bit about that and what big a change that means for a company of SAP size. I think it's
Sure.
telling.
You know, so I'll give you an example. So one of my experiences, you mentioned Xerox earlier, Chris, which is a good example. The fundamental changes that have to happen in business models are not necessarily acted upon by all leaders. And I think as you see your business models fundamentally shift, you have to have the vision and the courage to go with the change, go with the market, go with the shift. So back then, our company wanted to sell boxes because they wanted to recognize that sale revenue on the box to move the share price. Very natural thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a business model. But people wanted to start consuming things digitally as a service. That was the early phase of cloud. My division was growing to 50% a year. The core company was down 10%. But instead of saying, hey, let's go with the 50 and feed the success story, let's try to hang on to the past. That's a losing strategy. You can never fight markets. Now, there will always be a place for very complex systems in company data centers or on company premise because they want it that way. It could be financial services wants to hold their data very close to them. They protect it jealously. That's fine. But there will also be most companies now moving fundamentally to the cloud. Why? It's an easier consumption model. It's constant innovation. You don't have to buy all that hardware and all those services. You can if you want to, but you don't have to because now you can consume them in the cloud. And it's easier and lower cost. And that's why it's a prevailing theme in IT. So we decided in 2010, we had 0 revenue in the cloud. We had 0 users in the cloud. Our strategy said we go for the cloud. Today, we have 44 million users in the cloud. We're the fastest growing mega cap IT company in the world in the cloud, and we're the second largest company in the world in the cloud of software. And we've only just gotten warmed up. What's the story? Investors, sometimes, you're gonna have to educate them. They still want that immediate hit. Because if I sell it today, as opposed to rent it, I recognize all the revenue. If I rent it, in the long run I make more, but it's on the balance sheet as a deferred revenue stream. And they gotta get used to that. So fundamentally, as a leader, being in the middle of that discussion, I have a choice. Do I try to hang on to the past, or do I go for the future with everything I have? Once people understand how compelling the move is, and just how fast the momentum is growing, they're gonna love the story. That takes courage, that takes guts. You guys run businesses, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I love that story. We see that in some of the iconic companies. When you say long-term strategy over short-term gain, I think that's a powerful story.
You can't build companies for 60 days, build them for 60 years.
Well said. I probably have a little less than 10 minutes left of questions for me. We get time for audience questions too, so definitely prep stuff. We'll pull you. There's mics on either side, but I'm selfishly going to take a couple more and then maybe toss out some quick ones. One, you're a year removed from being co-CEO, but you were one of these like iconic examples of the co-CEO phenomenon. Talk a little bit about a year later, would you be a co-CEO again? You know, differences, opportunities, you know, I love that story as well.
Trust is the ultimate human currency. In 2009, we were at the back edge of the financial crisis, which you all lived through. I lived through it, you did. Very difficult time. Our CEO at that time at SAP was replaced by myself and my co-CEO, Jim, and we had gone into it having led the company through the difficult times, especially at the end of 2009. We kind of pulled all of the development team, all the field team together in a really powerful and compelling way, and the success story is there in the book, so I don't have to tell you about it. But I think the board kind of saw that along with Hasso Plattner, the founder of the company, and said, you know what, this might be a model for the future. And these guys are pretty unique. So I was on my way to a top performer trip with my wife and kids in Phoenix, Arizona. I get the call from Hasso asking me if I would be the co-CEO of the company. And I said yes. I did not delay. And the reason I said yes, what do you think? Because I had been waiting for that call my life. And there was no indecisiveness. But I did, after I said yes, say, you know what, man? McDermott, you may want to ask him who the co-CEO is, just for kicks. So he said, well, you know, it's Jim. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm good to go. And, you know, we immediately hit the ground running. But here's the key thing. Not everybody is destined to be your co-CEO. There has to be a framework of respect and trust, unconditional in a sense. And most importantly, I think you have to have very different skill sets. They have to be highly complementary. Why? Because if they're not, one of you is redundant. So it's really important that the other one has something you don't have. It's kind of like a marriage in that regard. And the main learning is the communication has to be unbelievable, especially in the beginning. After a while, you can start to finish each other's sentences. You can relate to that, right? And in the end, you have to recognize that making two better than one might actually be a better leadership outcome than even being a single great sole CEO, because you've shown the empathy for another one. You've actually shown the character and the integrity to do what's right for the organization and not get into a political power match. I didn't get to be the sole CEO because I won a political power match. On the contrary, I remember sitting in Heidelberg, Germany with my co-CEO when he had made the determination that he wanted to spend more time with his family because his kid's a little younger than mine and they're right now at that inflection point in high school where they need their dad more. And I still said, you know, Jim, this is like, I'll never forget this. We're at this restaurant in Heidelberg, Germany. We always like to have these quarterly dinners together. And we usually laughed so much that, you know, we were a little bit of a security risk, but it was fun. And this one night, you know, we were on the dawn of the shareholder meeting. where the final vote would be taken for the sole CEO. And I said, Jim, you know, I remember hearing these stories about, you know, married couples that the night before the wedding, they kind of think, should I walk down the aisle and actually go through with it? And I'm like, if there's ever a single doubt in your mind between tonight and tomorrow at the shareholder meeting where you're walking down that aisle and you're not sure you actually don't want to be the co-CEO anymore, please change your mind and stay with me. And that's the kind of friendship and the kind of trust that we had. And then as sole CEO, what I think is interesting and kind of exciting is we're really in such a different world right now. The decision making on a global level has to be so crisp and so unbelievably accurate in what you do and how you do it that it's really a lot of fun because we now have 68,800 people counting on those decisions. So of all the things I love to make decisions. And I think the one thing that all leaders that get it done have in common is they love to make decisions. And even if they make an imperfect decision, which happens a lot, they recognize that there's 68,799 colleagues that can pick up a bad decision and make it work. The biggest mistake they make, leaders, is not making the damn call and hiring committees, deferring decisions, waffling around. Make the call and go forward. So the one thing that I've really enjoyed, because we toggle between all these time zones, is making a call and watch it spread so quickly across the globe that I just sit there in amazement at how great the colleagues are and their passion and their wisdom and their execution. And it's truly an honor.
Yeah, I believe that. So I probably have one last portion for me, and then we'll go to audience questions. So please do prep questions. We want a little fun. Let's do a little bit of lightning round. I want to do some smaller questions. I'll rattle through a few. Is there a productivity or life hack or something you do that you think makes you more productive today than you were in the past?
Well, I always tried to follow this formula. I think I'm getting better at it with the years, but it is like, first of all, we are nothing without our word. So the thing I pride myself on more than any other thing is being a man of my word. And I doubt you're going to find anyone that would deny that. So I think when you make a promise, you have to keep it. But what I try to do in any interaction I have is immediately follow up, document the interaction, and give a report out to the person, the team, whatever the thing is that we put together. Then relentlessly follow through to make sure the people involved in that loop actually did what you asked them to do. And then after that, follow up again to make sure that what you asked them to do, they actually did and understand what the outcome was from that thing that you committed to. Now, why is that so unbelievably important? Because when 68,800 people and 2.1 million people in the ecosystem know that your word is good, that you'll absolutely state what you said you were going to do, and you'll hold people accountable for actually having done it, and you really want the stories behind it and how it all turned out, you can actually really be productive. So I think that above everything else is one thing that I don't see enough of. In fact, sometimes I'm really like doggedly disappointed with me following up on what other people said they were going to do, and only to find out that they dropped the ball, they forgot, or they didn't get it done in their own organization because they're not a leader of consequence. They're not driving things and holding people accountable and making sure it's getting done. And to me, that's really boring. So those are the kind of people I move to the back of the Rolodex. I want to see the people that get it done.
Are we in a tech bubble right now? We're entering one.
No, I think that tech is like just getting started. I mean, I think there's so many unbelievable ideas that are going on in tech right now that could reinvent everything. I just left a board meeting. I'm on another board. We worked around the clock where I see healthcare being completely reinvented. I see predictive analytics. I see simulating things. I see 3D. I see 3D printing. I see unbelievable power in a business network. I mean, as exciting as it is to know your birthday and what you had for breakfast and your friends, I mean, I think it's even more exciting to know thousands and thousands of companies, actually millions of companies around the world, can actually conduct commerce in a cloud business network that fundamentally rethinks all the rules without any of the friction points, without any of the touch points, and takes all the mess and all the complexity out of the equation. Today, only 90% of your profits are being realized. You're forfeiting 10% of all your profits on complexity. I think the most intractable CEO issue of our generation is complexity. The only way to take your strategy and enable it fully and to get the outcome you dream of is to enable it with tech. I had 100 CEOs from around the world in New York with me last week, including every commissioner from every major league, all the owners of sports teams on top, and we fundamentally came to one milestone agreement. Tech is not supporting the business, tech is the business. So whatever your tech strategy is, however you have enabled technology to excite your people, your customers, and your ecosystem, ultimately, no matter how hard you work, if you didn't get that one right, you're going to get beat.
What's the most overhyped technology happening right now? Or innovation or trend?
I don't know, man. There's probably some game selling chocolate to Eskimos, you know?
That's mine.
Like,
Are you kidding
there
me?
you go. Like every day, you know, you can see the crazy talk out there, but I think that the fundamental thing is digital and digitization, and the idea of networking a digital strategy is so real, and it comes in so many forms. So you'll see the crazy ones, but there's just a lot of really, really powerful things happening in tech.
Cool. Last thing before I get yelled at, we do audience questions. Lightning round. 5 one words. What do you think? I want to make sure I hit them. KIP. You're the board member of KIP. Give me 10 words of KIP.
You know what I love about KIP? It's like
It's a network of charter schools. There are ones
Yeah.
in Philadelphia and beyond.
charter schools. It's no shortcuts, no excuses. And you know, the thing that moved me about KIP from day one when I got involved in it, these kids don't make excuses, and they understand the process, and there's no shortcuts. A shortcut and an excuse never ever built a single stair step to success.
Women in technology conversations, gender equality in technology.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, equal work, equal pay. I'll tell you a fast story. The first time I was passed up for a promotion, I went up to my corporate headquarters and I met with somebody 4 layers above me. It's in the book. And I registered my ambition. I said, I'm not here to have you change your decision, but I'm registering my ambition because I actually performed 5 times better than that person. I just want to understand why they got the job. And he had no idea. Like, I'm like 5 layers down. What the heck's this guy doing, right? So I encourage women or men, you should absolutely be paid fairly for your work, but you should also register your ambition. Nobody's going to manage your career better than you. And people need to understand what your dream is. That's why the winner's dream matters. Because whatever that dream is, that indelible mark that's in you will also be imprinted on others. But they'll never know unless you tell them. And everybody can know what you're working towards. And as long as you do it in good faith and empathy with high integrity and character, people will love you and they'll root for you.
I have a lot more, but I'll get in trouble if I keep going. So can we give Bill first round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
I think we have a little bit of time for a few audience questions. Microphones here if we have folks for audience questions. Come on up. I think we have maybe someone here. Otherwise, I will command the last 5 minutes. We have one here, I think.
My name is actually Kip, here with SAP.
I was not referencing you, just for the record.
Nice.
Jerk.
Honestly, no real questions. I look forward to reading your book and just want to say thank you.
Oh, that's so nice of you. And you know, I'm very honored that you act, no one has ever done that, by the way, in my entire career. So I'm deeply honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking
Thank
the
you,
time.
Kip. Thank you, sir.
Literally the sweetest person I've ever met. Here we go.
Thank you.
Kip. Jeez. We have one here. I think they want you. Yeah, oh, it's coming here.
Hi.
That's sweet. Kip.
Hello,
Buy you a drink after.
Karen Meidlinger from Viewed Inc. You talked about the lowest low in your life. Could you tell us about the highest high you've experienced?
Yeah, I can easily tell you. The highest high I ever experienced was watching my wife walk down the aisle, and the 2 times that I saw my sons born. And I can attest to this because The people in, I was there, in the smock and all that stuff. And the guys that were there with me in the room said they never saw a father jump that high or hug them that hard. So there's like nothing that can compare with your wedding day or the day your kids are born. On the career side, I think the highest high that I've ever had, believe it or not, it might have been, Puerto Rico. I go into Puerto Rico. They were 64 out of 64. They were dead last. So I was.
This is your office, like the SAP offices?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
gotcha.
this is Xerox.
Oh, okay.
I'm a young cat. Probably around 30 years old, and I was asked to run Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and I was Mr. New York at that time. My wife and I had an apartment in Manhattan, a newborn baby boy, a few days old. They said, Bill, we'd really like you to take a look at Puerto Rico. I said this to my wife. I had been to San Juan on vacation. She had never been there. You can imagine. She looks at me like, come on, dude, let's pull it together here. But I said, no, I'm gonna go scope it out because, and here's a little, thinking on this, right? You have to seize opportunities in your life. And the people that want it their way, I'll seize the opportunity. It's where I want to live. It's my comp plan. It's whatever my company car is. It's my bonus, my structure, everything from me. They get a certain reputation. The people that are in service to their dream and to their company, the company knows their dream. They know the ambition. There's nothing wrong with wearing that on your sleeve, because that's why they come to you in the first place, because they know you want it more. But then when you get the opportunity, you can't be too discriminating on what you're going to take. So I get there. This is a very good leadership lesson. I get there. I'm not like the American with the vision and the strategy and we're going to do it this way. I basically read Spanish for Gringos. I'm just listening to the people. There was a guy named Pedro Rosselló that was the governor of Puerto Rico at the time. He just run off a good campaign. Right around the same time, Bill Clinton was coming into political power. And he basically had a campaign pledge that I thought was fantastic. The people speak, and I obey. So I went there for 2 weeks and interviewed all the people. And here's what I learned. When you listen to people, they have all the answers. They said, Bill, we want a vision. We want to be inspired when we come to work. It shouldn't be like a prison cell. The other guy cut off the water and the donuts. You know how it works. And then they're like, we want our holiday party back. Like, they took our holiday party. I'm like, well, wait a minute now. What are you saying? They took your holiday party. Oh, no, we have no holiday party. Probably if we whip something up in the conference room, we can do, Secret Santas and, throw around coal. I said, well, what would be your dream? What's your ultimate vision? They said, well, Gilbertito Santa Rosa is the greatest salsa singer and dancer in Puerto Rico. We love to dance. I said, well, I think that you need to now pick out the best ballroom in Puerto Rico. They said, well, that's the El San Juan Hotel, which I could relate to. So I came back into the office the next day. And in my, broken English, Spanglish I called it, I told them that this is the vision. This is how I dream about inspiring you. And incidentally, last night I called up Gilbertito Santa Rosa, and we booked him at the El San Juan Hotel for our holiday party. There's only one caveat. When we dance, we need to dance as winners, and we will be #1 in the world. We will go from 64th to 1st. Every single person rises out of their seats with unbelievable passion. So every month, every quarter, we measured this thing down to the nth detail. The story's in there. We're coming around the corner in October, like Seabiscuit. And by mid-December, we became the #1 district in the company. And everybody danced till 2:30 in the morning. I go up to Gilbertito, and I said, Gilbertito, I will write you a personal check. Senor, you have to keep playing. He said, no mas. This is the closest I've ever been to death.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The highest return on investment you can do as an entrepreneur or business owner is salsa dance. You get that.
That's it.
That's the top. Do we have one more? Otherwise, I have one to close on, because I think we actually do have to close then. Let's close with this. I'm not supposed to go over, but I'm just going to do it. That's how I roll.
Yes, sir.
Piece of advice that you wish you got earlier in life, something we can all take away and say, you know, something I wish I learned earlier on.
You can get anything in this life you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So I think the whole idea of empathy, of all the things that I hope you got out of this tonight, it's that it's been an incredible journey from the corner store to the corner office. But I remember that corner store. I traded in 3 part-time jobs. I was a busboy at an Italian restaurant. I was pushing around shopping carts at Finest Supermarket. I was working for the town of Amityville, looking busy. And I basically said, I need something I can get my arms around. So I walk into this delicatessen in my tuxedo from the Italian restaurant. I made $10 for 4 hours, and you prayed that the waiters would throw you some cash. And the owner was like pitching the job, and I said, you know, I would really like to understand how many hours I can get. And he goes, with me, you have to work hard. You have to give me so many hours. I'm like, dude, you bring it. Just bring it. So I ended up buying this delicatessen with 5,500 notes, which means you broke, but someone gave you a loan. Now, the deal was you pay me back the $7,000 in 12 months with interest, or I take it all back. And here's what I learned about empathy. First of all, I didn't have the money to stock the shelves, but I knew the suppliers. So I just said, just give me the first order on consignment. I'll never shop you. Probably you'll charge me a little too much on the margin, and I'll always owe you that order, no matter what. Do you want me to sign a contract? Not a single one wanted me to sign a contract. Everyone put the stuff on the shelves. The empathy was in understanding the customer. Now, I made my mistakes. I threw out like sales on milk and bread, and then everyone came in and brought the milk and bread, and I lost money and they didn't buy anything else, you know. I learned it all. But I said, okay, who's my base? And here's the idea. Not only what you do, but what your competition doesn't do or chooses not to do. So we had the senior citizen complex like a block and a half away. What do we know about senior citizens? Most of them would prefer not to leave the house and get delivery. We deliver. And then I had the blue-collar workers, not guys in ties, guys like my dad, in jeans and a t-shirt, who are rich on Friday night and broke by Sunday morning. We give them credit. Write it down in a little notebook. They never beat you. And then I had to get these high school kids to walk past the high school, a block and a half, past 7-Eleven to my store. So I'm hustling. I go over there one day, they're lined up, all 40 of them. There's only 4 of them in the store. And I said,
7-Eleven.
In the 7-Eleven. I said, how come you're all out here and there's only 4 of them in there? They said, well, they think we're going to take stuff. I said, wow, that's bad. Come with me. So I whoop them all down to the deli, follow me, and I take good care of them. And before too long, I build a video game room. Anybody remember Asteroids of Pac-Man here? That's what I'm talking about. And my brother built a little game room, and I got the guy in the mall. I go to the mall one day, and I see these kids pumping the quarters in the machine. I look in the back of the machine. I call the guy up, payphone, by the way. And I said, hey, I want to get one of those machines. I said, how much? And he goes, 5,000. I said, I don't have 5,000. Okay, 4,000. I said, whoa, I don't have 4,000 either. But I tell you what, I got an idea. You put the machines in my deli, I give you the space, and we split the quarters. They're always your machines, so if you don't like the deal, you can pick them up at any time and take them home. So I put the machines in the deli to draw the kids. So now I got the machines there, plenty of quarters in the cash register to break up the dollar bills for them. I'm feeding them sandwiches, taking care of them, treating them like they're 50. Everybody's happy. So one day a kid says to me, you know, Bill, when we want to get a nice sandwich and have a good time, play the games and all that stuff, we come here. And when we want to steal stuff, we go to 7-Eleven.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Winner's Dream. I think you had a copy outside. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it, guys.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Winner's Dream and winnersdream.org. Thanks, man. That's awesome.